Hi, this is Stephanie Falck, a technician at the Eastern Oregon Ag Research Center, and I'm here to present an Eastern Oregon Ag Minute. Lately, there's been a lot of talk about low-carb and low-sugar horse feeds. This week, I'll discuss carbohydrates and how they are utilized by the horse. Carbohydrates can be classified into three categories. Simple sugars are a one-sugar unit that is rapidly digested in the upper intestine. You can have two sugars linked together, called disaccharides. Starches are a small group of sugar units connected together with alpha bonds that are also digested quickly in the upper intestine. Animals can only absorb simple sugars, so enzymes break the alpha bonds, and the enzymes in the intestinal brush border help with absorption so they can be utilized by the body. Both sugars and starches are considered non-structural carbohydrates because they do not make up the structure of the cell wall. The structural carbohydrates that make up the cell wall are also called complex carbohydrates. This fiber is not readily digested. The sugar units are connected with beta bonds. These bonds can only be broken by bacteria and protozoa in the hindgut. The hindgut consists of the cecum, dorsal colon, and ventral colon. The microbes break down the fiber into volatile fatty acids that the horse can use for energy. It's estimated that 30 to 70% of the horse's energy needs are met by VFAs, the high end of it being horses on all hay diets, and the lower end being horses on high amounts of grain. In reality, there's no such thing as a low-carb horse diet, because the foundation of the equine diet should be forages. Yesterday I discussed what the difference between simple sugars, starches, and complex carbohydrates are. The horse's digestive tract is designed to handle small, frequent amounts of high-fiber meals. In the wild, horses will spend 17 to 22 hours of their day eating. The horse's stomach is small, holding only 2 to 4 gallons. In the stomach, acid and pepsin start the digestive process. Feed quickly exits the stomach in as little as 1/2 hour, moving to the small intestine. The small intestine is 50 to 70 feet long, holding 10 to 12 gallons. Here, fats, proteins, starches, and sugars, as well as fat-soluble vitamins and some minerals, are digested and absorbed. It can take anywhere from 2 to 8 hours for feed to pass through the small intestine before reaching the hindgut. The hindgut is made of the cecum, the large colon, and the small colon. The cecum is a blind pouch, 3 to 4 feet long, holding 7 to 8 gallons. Here, fiber digestion takes place, as well as fermentation of any remaining simple carbohydrates. The large colon is 10 to 12 feet long and holds 14 to 16 gallons. The small colon is 10 feet long and holds 5 gallons. Fiber digestion continues here. The microbes also produce some amino acids and B vitamins. Water and electrolyte absorption also occurs here. It can take around 3 days for feed to pass through the hindgut. Since the microbes are responsible for producing almost 70% of the energy used by the horse, it's important that they are healthy and functioning properly. While some horses do need grain, large amounts of it can negatively impact these microbes, leading to serious health concerns for the horse. Yesterday I discussed the basics of the horse's digestive system. Today I'll be talking about the role of sugar and starches. Most horses do not require grains if they are on a good quality forage. Hard-working animals and lactating mares often do require more energy. This is usually fed as some type of grain. Grains are rapidly digested in the small intestine, and sugars and starches are absorbed. However, since the stomach is so small and the rate of passage very fast through the upper portion of the GI tract, if a large amount of grain is fed, not all of it will be digested before it reaches the hindgut. When sugars and starches reach the hindgut, microbes quickly break them down. However, these are not the usual fiber-consuming microbes. They rapidly increase in number. Lactic acid and endotoxins are a byproduct, and they can kill the fiber-digesting bacteria. Gases produced often resulting in colic. Additionally, the endotoxins and low pH can lead to laminitis. Horses being fed large amounts of grain often have problems with ulcers as well, since they chew their grain less than hay, resulting in less saliva production. Saliva is important as a buffer against stomach acids. Another problem is that horses are designed to eat forage and have small amounts of energy constantly being produced. Grains, however, are rapidly absorbed, resulting in a spike in blood sugars and insulin. Some horses can actually develop insulin resistance, similar to type 2 diabetes in humans. High insulin has also been linked to laminitis, Cushing's disease, and equine metabolic syndrome. Grains are an important and necessary part to diets for some horses, but there are a few things you can do to minimize problems when feeding grain. First and foremost, feed grain only if the horse needs it. Buying a higher quality hay will often meet all of but the hardest working horses and broodmares' nutritional needs and will be easier on their digestive system. When feeding grain, remember that more frequent, smaller meals is better. Do not feed more than 5 pounds at a feeding. You want to maximize digestion in the small intestine, so very little sugar and starch makes it to the hindgut where it will upset the microbial population. Also, you can use the glycemic index of feeds to consider which ones will most limit the spike in blood sugar after a meal. Sweet feed with the molasses is one of the highest feeds on the glycemic index, followed closely by corn. Oats, on the other hand, is lower. Another option is one of the low-sugar commercial mixes available. Or you can feed more hay or even beet pulp instead of grain. Adding fat is also a great way to add calories to the horse's diet without increasing blood sugar or upsetting nutrient ratios. But that's a topic for another week. Some horses are very sensitive to the sugar content of their diet. Often these horses are diagnosed with Cushing's disease or equine metabolic syndrome. They often do not shed their hair coats and have crusty necks and odd fat deposits. They also have problems with frequent hoof abscesses and laminitis. Not only should these horses not consume any grain, but owners also need to watch the sugar content of the hay. Cool season grasses contain fructan, which is a non-structural carbohydrate like sugar and starch, but it must be digested by the microbes in the hindgut. High amounts of fructan can overwhelm the microbes, leading to the production of endotoxins, inflammation of the hindgut, and laminitis. Essentially, you can see all the same ill effects that you would from feeding a large amount of grain. There is no way to tell by looking at the hay what the sugar content is. Also, you can't tell by which cutting it is either. The only sure way is to have it tested in a lab. We do know that fructan is higher in hays and grasses after a bright sunny day, but also after periods of stress and drought. Cool evening temps below 40 degrees often lead to higher fructan levels as well. Quick and rapid drying of the hay can also increase the levels. Hay producers may want to take note that there is a pretty good market for low-sugar hay for these horses, with many owners willing to pay a premium for it. So having hay tested to see if it can qualify as low sugar might be worth your time and money.